Hey, what's up guys, back again with another video in the Node.js and Express series. This episode I'm going to show you how to work with HTTP and API requests.
Just don't talk to me, 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 just don't talk to me. I can't get enough of it.
Okay guys, so yeah, I'm going to show you how to work with HTTP requests and API requests and all that fun stuff. So yeah, so HTTP requests and API requests are basically the same thing, except that, you know, an API request is going to be on purpose, like the owner of a website or, you know, something like that will set up a thing on their website where you can actually go on their website and get data from their website on purpose, okay? So that's what an API is. An API is they allow you on purpose to actually access some features of their website or code or whatever. So that's all part of what it's called HTTP requests, which is basically just the requests that are made every time you use the internet, basically. I'm not going to go too in detail about what HTTP requests are and all that fun stuff, but I'm going to keep it simple, but I'm going to give you a good explanation so you have a good understanding of what's going to happen whenever you work with those. So just to show you an example, if we go to, let's see here, google.com, and, you know, type that in, press enter, you just made an HTTP request, okay? So yeah, so that's an HTTP request, and also you can make one if you go to any website, really, anything like that. And so there's a special kind of HTTP I can't say it. There's a special kind of request that you can make called a query, okay? Is where you can ask a website for information through an API or something like that. So that's the special part that we'll be working with in our websites, so we can gather information to do pretty cool stuff, and you'll see. But anyway, so yeah, like I said, just going to any website, it's basically HTTP request, okay? And once that request happens, it returns some data that you can use, okay? So to show you an example, the simple way of actually doing one, you can do a request like this. If you open up your console, you type curl, that's a special little command there. Then after curl, you give it a link, or basically give it a request to do, I guess you could say. So we'll do http //www.google.com, okay? So we're gonna make a request, and this is what the request returns, okay? All this cool information. So this is all basically all the information that Google returns to you whenever you go to its website, okay? And then your browser uses this information to render what it shows you on the screen, okay? So that's basically what it does, because you see some HTML code in here and stuff like that. But yeah, it's all magical. But anyway, the point is we can make a request pretty much with any website, and it's going to return some kind of data maybe. But the point is, now we can make special requests to APIs and stuff like that, okay? So you might be wondering, I mean, it's kind of cool that we can do it like this with the curl command, but how can we do this within, you know, our program, right? Within our Node.js and Express program, right? So how can we do it with this? Well, there's a special package on NPM, because NPM is so magical. It's called request, okay? Request, so we'll find that. There we go. Okay, and this is the special package that a lot of people use, as you can tell. 13 million people have downloaded it just this week, or every week pretty much. So yeah, it's very popular, and it's used to make HTTP requests, okay? And there's many different things you could do with this, many different features you can play around with. But of course, we're going to keep it simple, because that's all we need really to get started. And so yeah, so let's actually install this, of course. So we can do that. You know how to do that. You just go to our console and do npm install request --save. Okay, so that's going to install the request package, of course. So let that do its magic. Okay, so that's done. So we can go ahead and, you know, require the package up here like we would normally do. So const require is equal to, const request is equal to require request package. There we go. So that's how you do that, of course. Now, if you want to actually use the require, package, there's a method just called request that you would call upon to actually do a request, okay? So request, and then it takes some parameters. So the first parameter, as you can see, is a URI or URL. They're very similar, URIs and URLs, but it wants a string of that. So we're going to put a string of, let's do Google again, so http google.com, okay? The next thing you need is going to be your options, if you're going to have any options, but we're not going to have any, so we're going to skip that. And then we'll go to this one right here. So we're going to have a callback function, so we'll do function okie dokie. And then we want parameters here. So the first parameter is going to be error. The second parameter is going to be response. And the last parameter is going to be your body, okay? So body. Okay, and these parameters are very cool. You'll see in a second what we can do with these. But, okay, so the first one, basically, this is the parameter that tells you if you get an error when we run the request, okay? So let's do, usually what you want to do is like this. So if error, so if there is an error, do something like this, console.log, there was an error, okay? So that will be triggered if there's an error. Likewise, else, what you want to do is print out the body usually, okay? And the body is simply going to be the what the request returns, okay? So what like we got here, this would be the body of our request, okay? Because it returned all this information, okay? So that's your body, all right? So we're just going to print out the body once we run the request here. And then response, we haven't used that one, but the response is going to be the response code that is returned after the request happens or during the request or whatever. And so there's special HTTP requests that happen whenever you're using the internet. Like for example, there's one like 404, that's a 404 error, that just means that the page was not found. There's a 200 response, that's just the response whenever it doesn't have any problems, it goes along smoothly. So this should return a 200 response. So let's try running that. So we'll just go and run this. So node app.js, and let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So it prints out the body like we told it to, but let's print out the response code also. So we'll do response dot status message, or status code. I mean. So we'll print that out. That'll be the code that is returned whenever the request happens, of course, like I just said. So we'll just go ahead and run that, and we get 200 right here. So that's the code. Okay. So let's put a random URL. Okay. Let's see what happens. Let's see what kind of response we get from that. Let's see here. So we get a weird body. Actually, no, it makes sense. It says DNS server assist error or whatever. So that means that it could not find the URL that you were looking for, but it still returns 200. That's weird, but it kind of makes sense because it was still successfully able to go to a website technically. Because look, if we go here, I guess you could technically say this is a website. So that's probably why it did that. But anyway. If you want a better idea of all the response codes that you can get back, you can just look up HTTP status codes, and you can get all of these different codes here. As you can see, 200 just means okay. That means it went along successfully. Then we have something like these: bad request, unauthorized, payment required, a bunch of cool stuff. Kind of cool. So yeah, just check that out if you want to, if you're interested. And if also 404 means not found. We know that one. That's pretty famous. But anyway, so now that we can actually, do a request with this package here, we can actually do any request if we want to, really. I mean, it's not that hard once we get the URL of the request we want to do. So yeah, now we actually know how to, do requests and stuff like that for HTTP. And so that's pretty cool, right? So now you can do that. But now we can move on to APIs, okay? So APIs, like I said, are basically a setup way for you to retrieve information from someone's website or something like that, okay? So for example, a common API will be the weather API, which is just Yahoo's, weather API. So if I pull this up right here, they have their own API right here, so you can get weather data from different places in the world, of course, and all that fun stuff. So basically, we have a response here, okay, and your response is going to be basically the body like we have here. That's going to be your response. This stuff, all that is a response, okay? And so it asks you what format do you want the response to be in JSON or XML, okay? So those are the two main response types that people use when using this kind of stuff. And I highly recommend using JSON since we're working closely with JavaScript, because JSON stands for JavaScript object notation. So that means it's basically JavaScript objects, okay? So it's very easy to work with and stuff like that, okay? And XML is another famous one. Not that famous anymore, I don't think, but it's still very popular. And it's kind of like HTML in a way, because all the tags and stuff like that you could see. But anyway, we're going to be using JSON, of course, because it's way easier, like I said, and it's just really nice, okay? So yeah, that's the return type, which is going to be, the type that your body comes in, okay? And then we have different things we could search for, okay? Different queries we can make, okay? So whenever you're searching or making a request to a URL to get information, that's called a query, okay? This website makes it easier for us because whatever we want, it just tells us what query to click on, or copy, I mean. So we can copy this query right here, and this should return information that looks like this, okay? It'll just return information on one-word conditions for Dallas, Texas, okay? So we're just going to copy this, then we'll go back and we'll make a request. So we'll just comment this one out. We're just going to make a new one for practice, because practice makes permanent. So requests, and we'll say that's the URL that it gave us, of course, so we'll just paste that in. I know it's big, but oh well. And then callback function, error response body, okay? And then let's check and see if there's an error, so we can get that out of the way, because errors are not cool. Okay, and then else we can print out the body, so console.log body. There we go. So that should do what we want it to do. So let's see what happens when it prints out when we restart this application. Okay, so then it gives us this information here, which is, it kind of looks like what it told us to look for. This is exactly what it told us it would return. So if we go here and check, or if we compare these two things, they actually are the same thing. So yeah, that worked. So we did the request successfully, which is awesome. So we got some information about conditions in Dallas, Texas. So that's really cool. And so let's see if we can access this information, okay? So normally when you're working with objects, and JSON is an object, of course, if you ever worked with it, or it's a collection of objects, you could say, I guess, or arrays and stuff like that. If you want to access what's inside of it, we could simply do dot, and then whatever object or whatever variable you want to access, okay? So body dot, and let's see what the next thing is on here, right here. So query, so body dot query, like that. So let's see what happens if we print that out. Okay, and we get undefined. That is because this is actually a string. It's not actually JSON yet, because we didn't convert it to JSON. Because the way it works, we're printing out their body, which the body is a string for some reason. So basically what I'm trying to say is we just need to convert it to JSON, so we can actually turn it into a collection of objects and all that fun stuff. So to actually convert something to JSON, it's actually really easy. So we can store it in a variable. So we'll do var data is equal to JSON dot parse, and then we put in the string that we want to parse into JSON. So then we could do that. So now data is going to be our JSON that we can access, okay? So if we print out data rather than body, you can print out the actual JSON code, okay? Or not code, but whatever, JSON. So then it looks way better, it's more structured, okay? So you can definitely tell that is JSON text, okay? So now if we want to access query, we can simply do data.query, so we can get access to the query object. So if we restart here, we get query now. So now query doesn't show up, it's showing the results of, it's showing the contents of query, okay? So if we want to access created, we can simply do .created, okay? Like that. So that's pretty cool too. So let's restart like that. And cool, so it shows the date. That's exactly the data that we wanted, okay? So let's turn node mod on, because it's getting really annoying. So yeah, we have node mod on now, so let's get rid of this for now. And if you're wondering if there's an easy way to tell what we're looking at, or like see the data, if we copy this link here, we can make the request ourselves just by, of course, pasting the URL like this. And now I can look at the results of the JSON, okay? So of the request at least. So anyway, we have the request here, okay, and we can see everything that it returned, okay? And so by the way, it looks this nice. It won't look this nice for you probably because you don't have this plugin. I have a special plugin that formats it for me. So if I click this, well, it's not working. But the plugin I'm using is called JSON View. Okay, so make sure you get that. It's called JSON View. Pretty simple. So make sure you get that in the Chrome store. Just search JSON View and you should be able to add it to your extensions, okay? So anyway, it makes it so it looks all nice like this. And so we can actually tell what the heck we're looking at. We can close it, open it, stuff like that, right? So we have a bunch of objects here. So let's say we want to access text right here, right? And we don't want to like look at this and try and type it out because it's so long, right? So if we want to get a clear path of how to access this, we can right click it and then do JSON view and then copy path, and we can go back here and they can just paste it like that, data.query.results.channel item condition text. So it's that simple, okay? So that is a cool little shortcut for you. It makes your life way easier. So now it says mostly clear, okay? So that works, because if we go back here, it says mostly clear, and that's exactly what it said here too. That's what it returned, right? So that's how you look at stuff. If it makes it way easier. So yeah, that's how you access, a basic API and get a response, and then you can access the data of that response, and you can do cool stuff with it, right? But yeah, I mean, let me show you a more advanced API though that you might want to use for your website. So yeah, so if we go to unsplash.com, it's one of my favorite websites for free images. And we can go to the menu here, and it says API/developers, and this is what a lot of famous websites have, or popular websites have. They have a section for developers where you can use the website's API, okay? And this API right here is very nice, okay? As you can tell here, this is some JSON, so we can get data like this. Look at all this data we can access. Very juicy, okay? So yeah, so if you want to access data like this, we can use their API. And so what you want to do is look at their documentation. Let's figure out how to access it, okay? So if you look around, there's some HTTP stuff. Let's see here. Okay, looks like we need to get a client's ID to be able to do requests, okay? So yeah, to get a client ID, you need to log in and then go to My Apps and make your own app here, and then click your app, and then find your client ID, and it's your access key. So just copy that, and that will be what you use to actually run your requests to the API, okay? So once we get that, we can actually make the requests and stuff like that. So let's find something we want to request, okay? So let's see, list photos. Okay, so it says get a single page from the list of all photos, okay? So that sounds simple enough. So we'll get a list of photos, and it returns a bunch of information. So to make this request, it tells you, here's a link that you could use. So https://API unsplash.com/photos, and then question mark. Then the question mark is the sign that you put whenever you're making a request, okay? And then page equals 1, okay? So if you don't know what that means, I'll show you in a second. So we'll just copy this link here. Okie dokie. We'll go back, and then we're going to make a new request here. So request. And we're going to paste this here, and then we'll put our callback function, of course. Error response body if error console.log error. Okay, so then we'll print out body, or data, once we parsed it. So anyway, this is going to do what this one pretty much did. And so yeah, we're making a request here, https://API unsplash.com/photos on page 1. Okay, so let's get rid of this page 1 because we don't need that yet. But anyway, so this is the page we're going to be making this request to. Okay, so to actually make a proper API request, we're going to put a question mark. That's the sign for a query. Okay, and then what you want to do is provide some arguments, like what information you want to provide when you're making the request. Okay, so one that we actually need to put is our client ID I told you about. So if we go back up here, we need to add a client ID. Okay, so we're going to add our first parameter. That's going to be client ID. So if we go back here, client ID, and then you put equal sign, and then after the equal sign, you're going to put the data, of course. So I'm going to get my client ID. I'm going to go back to my apps and then paste it here. Okay, so that's going to be my client ID. Okay, so that's going to be the first parameter. Okay, and if you want to add another parameter, you do the ampersand for an and, the and sign. And then if we go back to our the request we're trying to make, let's find list photos. Okay, so it says list photos, and it gives us some parameters that we can have when making the request. Okay, so one of the parameters that we can add is page. Okay, so that's an optional parameter, as you can see here. They're actually all optional. Okay, so let's actually not use these yet. We're gonna keep it without the page parameter. Okay, so let's see what happens when we make this request now. Okay, so we get this information here, which is a giant JSON text. Okay, it's a huge thing of JSON, and it's pretty cool looking and very nice. It's a massive amount of data. Okay, and so if we want to actually see this, of course, we can just copy this link here and paste it in our browser. and then it shows it like this. Okay, so we can get all of this data, and we're accessing all of this data, and that's really cool. So as you can see, well, as it says, it's getting a single page from the list of all photos. So this is going to be pretty much a list of multiple photos and its data associated with it. So if we close this, this is 1 photo, 2 photo, 3 photo, 4 photos, 5 photos, 1, 2, 3, or 6. I can't count. But anyway, so this is going to be an array of objects, it looks like. It's going to hold a bunch of information, okay? And each photo, it has ID, created at, updated. It's going to have all this different information associated with each one, okay? It's a basic object, okay? So yeah. So for example, if we want to get access to one of these pieces of information here, like the full URL, let's click on this, see what it returns. Oh, cool. So it's a link to the actual image. So if we want to access the full or raw image, of course we can just right click on it and actually get the path. If we go back here, so if we paste this here, then we should be able to get that. So let's restart. It restarted for me, of course, because I'm using NodeMon. But yeah, I returned the link. That's the piece of data that we asked it or led it to, because that's the path we put in there, of course. So it returned the link that we wanted, and so we could use this link as a piece of data in the future, like whatever we want to do. But yeah, I mean, that's just an example of how to get a piece of data from a API, basically, okay? So let's actually try adding some parameters here. So we can add a page parameter. So it says page and then page number to retrieve. So let's add that parameter. So if we go back here, we can go here, put an ampersand for and then put a page, and then equal sign, and then you can put whatever page you want to access. So we'll put page 4, okay? So if we want to access page 4, let's go ahead and reload here. Oh wait, no, that's not page 4. We're doing it in the console, of course. So if we reload here, NodeMon, it's giving still that link here from page 4. So yeah, let's print out all of the data from page 4 basically. There we go. So this is all of the data from page 4, all the image data. So that's pretty cool. And so if we can open this, we can open this here. Let's print that to, oh, it says page is invalid, okay? So that's interesting. Oh, because I accidentally copied the quotation right here. That's why. So here we go. Here's all the data from page 4. So yeah, we can access it and do whatever you want to, just like we did before. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, so I mean, I know this is pretty simple. Well, actually, no, it's pretty complex. And but basically, what we're doing is we're accessing APIs and website information by doing requests, which are called HTTP requests. Okay, so this is a query, a type of request, you could say, that gets information. Okay, so let's test this out by doing one more just to get a hang of this. So let's try one of these API things here. List collections. Okay, so this is a request that is going to list a bunch of collections, I guess, of something. So I guess we could do something like this. So this is the link that they want you to access it from. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. Oh, we'll keep our client ID, so we'll just paste it like this. Boom. And then so we have the question mark to make sure it's a query, because we're making a query. Because if we go to collection, if we go to this link here without, you know, anything, it's just going to be nothing, right? But if we have a query here, our query sign, which is a question mark, we can actually make a request, you know, like a special little request. So anyway, let's do that. So we're of course having our client ID, and if we go back, we can see that we have parameters here, and they're both optional, so we don't have to have one, but we can add a page parameter here, so we can say what page, of course. So we could we're already looking for page 4. I forgot to get rid of that. So yeah, anyway, so it's printing out the data from page 4 down here. So yeah, we're just getting a bunch of data, right? So let's actually go to this link, of course, so we can look at it better. Okay, so this is all of the data from page 4 of that collections that we just searched for or whatever. So that's pretty cool, I guess. Pretty simple stuff, you know. So now that we actually know how to make requests and get data from, you know, these APIs, we can actually do something with this data. Okay, we need to actually use the data. Okay, so next episode I'm going to show you how to actually use the data, make something cool with it, so we can actually do stuff with it rather than just look at it. Because as you can see here, we're able to access the data by, of course, putting like the path and all that. Like the path and all that stuff like that. But anyway, so next episode we're going to be working with that, actually accessing the data and displaying it and doing stuff with it, because having access to all of this information is actually insane, okay? So we can do a bunch of cool stuff with it. So anyway, if you have any questions about what we did, you could always ask a question, because I know this was a little confusing, but basically, of course, we're just using the request package to make a request to certain links and stuff like that, using APIs and all that fun stuff. And we'll get plenty of practice, don't worry. But anyway, if you have any questions, like I just said 2 seconds ago, you can always ask, leave a comment, and I'll help you. Also, we have a Discord in the description where you could join that, and you could hang out with us or ask questions, whatever you want to do. Yeah, so if you liked the video, oh yeah, wait, also, we have a link here, which is all of the code from today's episode. Make sure you check that out in the description also. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But anyway, if you liked the video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and peace.